and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel and I have been sharing my TTC and infertility journey here on YouTube for over 4 years now. Today's video is going to be me answering some of your questions that I got over on my Instagram. Basically, I asked if you weren't going through this journey, what would be the questions you would want to ask someone who is? So if you haven't followed me over on Instagram, be sure to do so. My handle is just @RachelMcLaughlin. Thank you all so much for supporting. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to do so. It would really support me and help me on this journey, and I would just love for you all to be able to join our community as well. All right, so got my coffee, which is a necessity. All right, so first question is, do you still have the hope that it will ever happen? Absolutely, I do have the hope that it will happen, and I've said in some previous videos, you know, I truly have faith that this is not something that would be so heavy on my heart, such a massive desire, if it wasn't going to be a part of our story. I truly believe that, you know, in all honesty, I've always loved children and I've always been really good with them, if that makes sense. And I know, like, for Tyler, like, that's been his #1 desire, is just to be a dad and to have a family. I really don't think that this journey will end in us never having a child. I just think that this journey is a part of our life to help us, to challenge us, and to guide us on the path of where we're supposed to go. Obviously, you know, I feel like God gives us challenges and struggles to help us, to move us forward and help us grow as human beings. Just because I say I have hope doesn't mean that I don't ever get down or I don't ever feel like, you know, maybe this won't happen. Because, you know, I know that that is still a possibility. I just, deep down in my soul, I feel like it will happen in the best and most perfect way. It just can be really hard to see that sometimes, and to remind yourself of that over and over and over every month when you get your negative. Next question. Do you struggle with the thought that you might never be a mom? You know, like in the previous question I just answered, you know, I do feel deep down in my soul that it will happen, but at the same time, it's not that I never think that it might not happen. Just like I said in my last video, or in my last question, you know, I know that that is a possibility, even if I want to believe and truly feel like that it's not, like, that's not gonna happen for us. I still know in my head that that is something that could happen. And sometimes, I think more so when you go to an infertility doctor and you start treatments and those treatments are failing, I really think that those are the moments that are the hardest, that truly test your ability to remain hopeful. I think one of the biggest ones was after the IUI. When that didn't work, I really had my hopes high for that. I really thought, you know, that's what we need, and that's gonna help us get pregnant. And when it wasn't successful, I think that's when I really took a step back and was like, okay, you know, there's something else wrong. And if we never find that out and figure out what that is, there is a possibility that I might never conceive. And it is a very hard thing to have to think about, and honestly to have to talk about with your spouse. But that is really where my faith comes in and helps me to, you know, remain hopeful and to understand that his plan will be greater than mine, and that I just have to be patient and faithful and you know, just be strong on this journey. The next question is, what is the wrong question to ask someone who is trying to conceive? You know, I see this in the infertility community a lot. I see where people post about this, and I have talked a little bit about stuff like this, I think, early on in my journey, just dealing with other people. I think that that was honestly one of the most challenging things of the first 2 years of this journey. Like, when are you gonna have a baby? Are you all, do you want kids? Why are you not already pregnant? Like, there's just a lot of questions that come as soon as you get married. And I think just the question, when are you gonna get pregnant? I think that is a very hard question when people ask that, and probably one that is probably the worst question to ask. When you're going through infertility, you know, we know that you can't plan when you're gonna have a child. We know that it's out of our hands of when we can have a child. But for people that just get pregnant very quickly and it's never been a struggle, it's something that they don't understand, that that's not something that everybody can just plan. That you can't just decide, okay, I'm gonna get pregnant in March, you know, and then it'll be the perfect time when I have a baby. It doesn't work like that. And so to assume that that is how it is for everybody and to ask those questions can be very, very emotionally difficult and draining. And when you are in such an emotional roller coaster in such a sensitive time, you know, sometimes our reactions are not what we would want them to be. They're not what we would ever intend to be like, but it's just such a raw and emotional time that I had to really learn how to navigate those questions, because I still get them to this day. It's just a lot different because I've learned how to deal with those emotions that come from those questions, and I've also learned how to respond. When people that I know, when people that aren't in this journey and like in my personal life kind of give me unsolicited advice, even here on YouTube, when people are like, why don't you just adopt? Have you ever thought about adoption? Have you ever thought about fostering? Like, I understand, I truly do understand those questions, but it's just hard when you're on this journey, because it's like, so because I'm having trouble conceiving, that means I'm not worthy of conceiving, that my focus should be that I should adopt. That I don't think that because you're infertile, I don't think that that's why you should adopt. I think that adoption is a very difficult thing. I think it's something that you have to have on your heart even before being infertile. I think it's something that you are called to do, and it's not because you're going through infertility. I don't think the two go hand in hand. Sometimes it ends up like that because it's just how it ends up, but it doesn't, to me, and the way that I feel on my journey. If I choose to adopt, adoption was always something that I thought about like before infertility. It's something that I considered in my own mind and something that was on my heart before then. So if I were to ever adopt, it's not because I went through infertility. You see what I'm saying? Like, so I think some of those things are really difficult questions and difficult things to have to navigate. Did you try IVF, ICSI? No, I haven't. The only treatments that we have tried so far is an IUI. We've done timed cycles with medication, and that's it so far. Do you sometimes feel angry at your body for not doing the most natural process in the universe? You know, I think that I would be lying if that's not something that I never think about. Obviously, it's something where I question. I'm just like, why? Like, why can't I conceive? Like, obviously there's something wrong, that is a disease or something in my body is not appropriately functioning. So yes, it is something with my body, but I also think that having a child is a miracle from God, and I think that there's obviously a reason why my body struggles. And you know, I think that it's easy to get angry at the fact that you can't conceive and that it's not as easy for you as it is for a lot of other people in the world. Sometimes you can question, like, why me? Like, there's so many people in the world that conceive and don't want to conceive. But I think I just have to remind myself that that is God's plan, and because they had a child, whether they wanted it or not, there's a reason why God gave them that child. And I'm not saying that that's why, like, God doesn't want me to have a child or anything like that. I don't think that that's the case. Yes, I think that there is something wrong in my body, but I also feel like this struggle was given to me for a reason, to make me a better person and to help me grow as a human. So yes, I do sometimes get angry about it, and sometimes I think like it's not fair, but at the end of the day, you can't have those thoughts. You have to think positive and move ahead, and just know that whatever is wrong, that hopefully and prayerfully it will work out in the end, and we will still have our miracle. Okay, here is a good one. it's my instinct to suggest solutions. What things could I say to a TTC mama instead? So my first thought about this is that I don't think you should make suggestions to somebody who's trying to conceive. I think that unsolicited suggestions can really make someone who's trying to conceive very uncomfortable and very distant. Like, when people suggest things to me unsolicited, a lot of times it just makes me push them away. It makes me just kind of gain my distance, because your TTC and infertility journey is very emotional. It's just a roller coaster. And when you make suggestions and you're not sure what point in their journey they're on, I think it can be very detrimental to your relationship and to their emotional and mental well-being. Because if you were to make suggestions to me and say, what if I did just get a negative on a procedure, or what if I did have a positive and it was a chemical pregnancy and it didn't work out? I just think there's so many things that you probably don't know about their situation. So to make suggestions that are unsolicited might not always be helpful anyways. You see what I'm saying? So I really think that if I were you and you were gonna make suggestions, I think I would only do that if the person was already confiding in you and asked for your suggestions. Other than that, I really would recommend just not giving suggestions, as bad as that might sound. Did you find it offensive if someone asks if you plan on having kids? I don't think I find it offensive. That particular question, I don't think I find it offensive. I just find it a little uncomfortable, obviously. And it's similar to like, when are you gonna have kids? And it's asking about the plan. And so preferably, I would prefer people not to ask me that question, obviously. But it's a little bit easier for me to answer and just say, whenever the good Lord lets me, or whenever the good Lord wants me to. And but it's just an uncomfortable question. So I don't so much take it as offensive as I do just really uncomfortable. Ever get jealous, upset, or angry when another friend is pregnant? This is a tough question. So in the beginning of this journey, I shared a video talking about jealousy. I also did a video with a friend who had been struggling to conceive, who had struggled to conceive, and we kind of touched on it as well. I think in the first couple of years, I really, a lot of my friends were getting pregnant, and it was very difficult. And now, and during those first years, yes, I genuinely was happy for them, but at the same time, I was also very sad for myself. And it was definitely an emotional roller coaster that I had to learn to navigate. When I would feel those emotions, I would really get mad at myself, because I knew that those emotions weren't right. It wasn't like I shouldn't have been feeling those emotions. But I had to learn that those emotions are okay, they're natural, and they're normal. And it's okay to acknowledge those, give yourself grace, and move on. And, I think sometimes it's harder than other times. Whereas, I think I've done really good over the past couple of years with that kind of stuff. And I've been able to be more genuinely happy for people, because I see the beauty in it. And it is an exciting time, and everybody should be very excited when they're pregnant. They should be able to share that. They should be able to feel like they shouldn't have to feel like people are upset at them. And I think that any of those emotions that you would feel is not toward that person at all. It is not toward them. It's not about them. It's purely about yourself and your own journey. And so I think just having to navigate that is a struggle, but I think I've done a lot better with that and being able to manage my emotions and just feel more genuinely happy for people. Somebody said, how are you? I really am doing great. I feel really good emotionally and mentally. We are in the process of saving up for our next procedure. Well, it's really like a test for the receptiva test. And so we had you know, we were so close to being able to schedule that, and we had the funds, and then we had something happen that we needed to use that money on something else. So I think that that was a struggle for me, and just seeing all these like pregnancy announcements and stuff like that and not being able to take action in my own journey has been a little bit of a struggle recently. But I think overall I'm doing really well, feeling really well. I am just kind of feeling a little tired about this whole pandemic. You know, it's getting really serious where I live. The surge is really high, and so we've really not been hanging out with our families that much. It's getting a little bit more scary, and I think unrelated to my actual infertility journey, I think that right now is the thing that stresses me out and kind of makes me a little down the most, because it's just, I'm just ready for things to get back to some sort of normalcy, and just to be able to see my family whenever and not have to worry about getting somebody sick. Another question is, what if someone told you you could never have a biological child? And I think the difference between this question and the one of like, do you ever fear you won't be able to conceive or something like that, the significance of this question is the hardest thing in my mind, because being told, like actually being told from a physician that you would never conceive, I don't know how to be able to handle that. I think that right there, it makes me emotional. I think that would be the hardest thing to ever go through. For somebody to tell you you cannot conceive, who is a medical professional and sees these patients day after day and it knows all about this, to tell you you can't conceive, I don't know what I would do. I think that would be the hardest, biggest struggle of my life, because I have so much faith right now and so much hope that it will happen, and I do feel like we have options that could help make that happen if for some reason my body could not physically conceive. And I do have hope, and I know that God can make miracles happen. But for somebody to tell you that it won't happen, I think would be very hard to overcome. I think that that's my prayer like every day, is that it will not come to that, and that I will remain hopeful and faithful that it will happen. So that's definitely the hardest question by far. Alright guys, that is it for the questions that were submitted. Thank you all so much for submitting over on my Instagram. If you all are on this journey, or if you would like to support my journey, I do have a new merch shop, which is super fun, and it definitely just spreads a positive message that I kind of share throughout my journey, which is "Thy will be done." If you're interested in any of those products, be sure to check out the link down below. It will definitely help support our journey and this season of our life and my channel. So thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys.